The words hung in the air like poison. "You're not our real dad anyway." I stood frozen in the hallway, my hands still on the doorknob, as my daughter's voices drifted through the crack in the door. My heart stopped beating for a second. "I'm Tom. I've been raising these girls since they were tiny." And just like that, with a few words, they broke my world apart. Let me take you back to how it all began. It was a Tuesday, just a normal day. I was tired after work. My job at the factory is hard. I stand all day making car parts. My back hurt, and all I wanted was to sit down with my family and maybe watch some TV. When I walked into our small house, something felt weird. It was too quiet. Usually, Lily and Grace, my daughters, would be running around or fighting over the TV remote. But today, nothing. My wife Jenny was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes glued to her phone. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "Where are the girls?" I asked, putting my lunchbox down. Jenny just shrugged, still scrolling on her phone. That's when I heard voices coming from the back of the house. I thought it was strange because the back door was supposed to be locked. I walked toward the sound, thinking they might be playing in the yard. But then I passed the living room door, which was open just a tiny bit. Through the crack, I could see Lily and Grace huddled together on the couch, whispering. "We don't even have to call him Dad anymore," Lily said. She's the older one, 13 going on 30, with long brown hair like her mom. "He's not our real father," Grace added. She's 11, with freckles across her nose and a gap in her front teeth. "I can't believe Mom married him." Their words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I just stood there, feeling like someone had taken all the air out of my lungs. That I should have walked in right then. I should have asked them what they meant. But I was so hurt, so shocked, that I backed away, my hands shaking. That night at dinner was terrible. The girls barely looked at me. They didn't ask about my day like they usually did. They didn't laugh at my jokes. They just ate their spaghetti in silence, their eyes on their plates. Jenny didn't say anything either. She just drank her wine and kept checking her phone. It was like I had become invisible in my own home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, with tears in my eyes. The words kept playing over and over in my head. "Not our real father. Not our real father." But I was their father, maybe not by blood, but in every way that mattered. I had been there when Grace fell off her bike and needed 12 stitches. I was the one who helped Lily practice her spelling words every night. I went to every school play, every parent-teacher meeting. I tucked them in at night and chased away the monsters under their beds. How could they say I wasn't their real dad? The next morning, I got up early. The house was quiet, but I could hear the girls in the kitchen. When I walked in, they were sitting at the table, both looking at their phones. I took a deep breath. I needed to know why they felt this way. "Do you two think I'm not your father?" I asked, my voice shaking a little. They didn't even look up. Grace just shrugged, and Lily muttered, "You're not. You never really were." The words cut through me like a knife. They didn't even seem upset about it. They just said it like they were talking about the weather. "Well," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though I felt like screaming, "if that's how you feel, then I guess I'm not going to act like a dad anymore." They didn't respond. They didn't even look up from their phones. And just like that, I decided I would stop being their father. For the next few days, I stopped doing all the things I usually did for them. I didn't make their breakfast. I didn't remind them to brush their teeth or do their homework. I didn't ask about their day or help them with their projects. I just stopped. I don't think they noticed at first. They were so used to me doing everything for them that they probably thought I was just busy. But by the fourth day, things started to change. Grace came downstairs that morning, still sleepy, her hair all messy. She stood in the kitchen doorway for a minute, looking confused. "Aren't you going to make breakfast?" she asked. Rubbing her eyes, I was sitting at the table, reading the newspaper. I didn't even look up. "I don't know," I said. "You don't really need me to, do you?" She just blinked at me, looking more confused than angry. But the next day, she didn't ask again. She just made herself some cereal. By the end of the week, the whole house felt different. The girls were quieter, more careful around me. Jenny noticed it too. One night, after the girls had gone to bed, she cornered me in the living room. "Why are you being like this?" she asked, her arms crossed. "Why aren't you taking care of them?" I kept my eyes on the TV. "I'm not their father anymore," I said. "They don't want me to be. So why should I pretend?" Jenny didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her mouth open a little, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Days passed, and things got worse. The house, which used to be full of laughter and noise, became quiet and sad. The girls started looking at me differently, not with anger, but with confusion and maybe a little bit of sadness. They didn't understand what had happened. They didn't get why I wasn't being the dad they expected me to be. It was like they hadn't realized how much I did for them until I stopped doing it. Meanwhile, I was hurting too. I missed being their dad. I missed helping with homework and making pancakes on Saturday mornings. I missed hearing about their days and making them laugh. But every time I thought about going back to the way things were, I heard those words again, "Not our real father." One night, about 2 weeks after I heard them talking, things finally came to a head. We were having dinner, takeout pizza, because neither Jenny nor I felt like cooking. The girls were pushing their food around on their plates, not really eating. Suddenly, Grace looked up at me, her eyes big and sad. "Why aren't you helping anymore?" she asked. Her voice was small, almost a whisper that I didn't look up from my pizza. "You didn't want me to help." Grace shook her head, her forehead wrinkled in confusion. "That's not what we meant. We didn't think you'd just stop being there for us. Maybe you should have thought about that before you told me I wasn't your father," I said, my voice cold. Grace looked like I had slapped her. Her face crumpled, and I saw tears in her eyes. "But we didn't mean it like that. We were just what?" I interrupted. "You were just angry? You didn't think about how it would feel to hear that? To be told I'm just some stranger living in your house?" The room went silent. Grace opened her mouth, then closed it again, like she didn't know what to say. Beside her, Lily was staring at her plate, her face red. Jenny, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. "You don't have to be like this, Tom." I didn't answer right away. I was too angry, too hurt. I had given everything to this family. I had worked long hours at a job I hated to put food on the table. I had fixed their broken toys, helped with science projects, cheered at soccer games. And in one moment, they had made me feel like none of it mattered. "Maybe I don't have to be like this," I said finally. "But I don't want to pretend like nothing happened either. You all made it clear where I stand in this house. I'm just the guy who brings in money and fixes things, right?" Jenny's face softened a little, like she was going to say something kind, but I didn't want her kindness. I didn't want their pity. I just wanted them to understand how much they had hurt me. The next week was strange. The girls started to notice that Jenny wasn't stepping in anymore. She wasn't trying to make things better between us, wasn't smoothing things over like she usually did. And that seemed to scare them more than anything. They were used to our comfortable routine, the one where I was the dad, the provider, the fixer of all problems. Now that I wasn't playing that role, everything was off balance. The girls didn't know how to act around me, and I didn't know how to act around them. By Friday night, I had stopped doing just about everything I used to do. I didn't pick Lily up from her friend's house. Jenny had to do it. I didn't help Grace with her math homework. She had to figure it out herself. I didn't fix the leaky faucet in the bathroom or change the light bulb in the hallway. I just existed in the house like a ghost. That night, I was sitting in the living room, pretending to watch TV but really just thinking about how messed up everything had become, when Grace came in. She hesitated in the doorway, then came over and sat next to me on the couch. Her small hands were twisting together nervously. "Dad?" she said, her voice barely a whisper. King we talki." I didn't look at her right away. I was still hurting, still angry. "About what?" I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean what I said. We didn't mean it. We were just, I don't know. I didn't think it would hurt you." I let the silence stretch between us. I wanted to believe her, but part of me was still so angry. What if she was just saying sorry because things were getting uncomfortable? What if she didn't really mean it? I turned the page of the magazine I was pretending to read. "You should have thought about that before," I said. My voice flat. Grace's shoulders dropped, and for a second, I thought she might cry, but she didn't. She just sat there, staring at the floor, her face pale with regret. I could see the guilt all over her face, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered how carelessly they had thrown away everything I had done for them, and my heart hardened again. The next day, Jenny confronted me. She came into the kitchen while I was making coffee, just for myself, not for everyone like I used to. "You've made your point," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "Why are you punishing them like this?" "I'm not punishing them," I said, keeping my voice calm even though I felt like I was breaking inside. "I'm giving them space to figure it out. They don't get to just dismiss me and then expect everything to go back to normal." Jenny looked at me for a long time, like she was trying to see inside my head. Finally, she sighed. "I think they realize what they've done, but you're making it worse. You're not being fair." I slammed my coffee mug down so hard that some spilled onto the counter. Fair? They're the ones who made this unfair in the first place. The days that followed were a blur of awkward silences and half-hearted attempts to make things better. The girls didn't talk to me much. They didn't ask for anything. They just moved around the house like shadows, their faces tight with discomfort. For the first time, I could see how deep the crack in our family had become. It was clear the girls regretted what they had said. But was it too late? Had we gone too far down this road to turn back? It wasn't until the following weekend that I really started to see a change. The girls, who had been avoiding me for days, started looking at me differently. There was a sadness in their eyes, a recognition of what had been lost. They had begun to feel what I had been feeling all along, disconnected, unwanted, pushed aside, that I had no idea how long I could keep this up. Part of me still wanted them to understand how deeply they had hurt me, but another part wondered if I was doing the right thing. Maybe they weren't ready to see it. Maybe they would never see it. One Saturday morning, Jenny asked me to come with her to a parent-teacher meeting for Grace. I hesitated. There was still so much unspoken between all of us, so much tension that none of us knew how to fix. I knew Jenny was hoping that going together might smooth things over, but I didn't want to pretend everything was okay when it wasn't. "I'll go," I said finally, my voice flat. We drove to the school in silence, the air between us thick with unspoken words. Grace was sitting in the back seat, her shoulders hunched, her eyes darting between Jenny and me like she was waiting for something to explode. The meeting with Mrs. Thompson, Grace's teacher, was mostly about grades and behavior. Grace was a good student, but her grades had started to slip in the past 2 weeks. Mrs. Thompson was concerned. "She seems distracted in class," Mrs. Thompson said. "Is everything okay at home?" Jenny and I exchanged a look. No, everything was not okay at home, but neither of us wanted to say that to the teacher. "We're going through some adjustments," Jenny said finally. The whole time, Grace sat in her chair, not looking at any of us. Her face was pale, and I could see her hands trembling slightly in her lap. For the first time, I realized how much this was affecting her, not just at home, but at school too. After the meeting, we stood outside the school, the cold autumn wind biting at our faces. Jenny turned to me, her expression serious. "You need to talk to them," she said, her voice low but urgent. "This can't go on." "I have talked," I replied, not meeting her eyes. "And they've made it pretty clear how they feel. They're not just going to figure it out on their own," Jenny insisted. "You're the father. You're supposed to lead the way." I stopped walking, turning to face her. "I'm supposed to lead the way? Really?" I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. Because last I checked, they were the ones who decided I wasn't their father. They were the ones who said it, not me. Jenny didn't have an answer for that. She just stared at me, like she had no idea what to say anymore. The car ride home was quiet. When we pulled into the driveway, I saw Lily standing by the front door, looking uncomfortable and awkward. It was clear she had been waiting for us. I walked past her without a word, heading inside. The silence that followed was suffocating. But this time, it was different. Both girls followed me, hovering in the doorway of the living room where I had sat down. I didn't look up, trying my hardest to maintain the distance that had become like a wall between us. "Dad," Lily said, her voice small. "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. I could feel her standing there, waiting. The air between us was so thick with regret and sadness that I could hardly breathe. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her. "You want to talk now?" I said quietly, not bothering to look up from the TV. "What happened to all those times you told me I wasn't your real dad? You didn't need to talk then." The guilt on Lily's face was clear, but it didn't make me feel any better. I was tired of being the one who always had to fix things, always had to be the bigger person. "I didn't mean it," she said softly. "I was just angry and confused. I don't know why I said that." Her words seemed real, seemed true, but they didn't change what had happened. The damage had been done, and I wasn't sure if we could go back to what we had before. "I know you didn't mean it," I replied, "but it still hurts. I've been trying to understand why you said it, why you'd push me away like that after everything I've done for you." She didn't have an answer for that. Neither did Grace, who had been standing silently in the corner, watching us. After a few moments, Grace spoke up. "I don't know what we were thinking, Dad. I'm sorry. I really am." I looked at both of them. Their faces were red, their eyes wide with sorry feelings. But even as they apologized, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was too late. Too much had changed between us. "Sorry doesn't fix everything," I said softly. "You can't just tell me I'm not your father and then expect everything to go back to normal when it's convenient for you." My words hung heavy in the air, and I saw both girls flinch. I could feel the sorry feelings coming from them, but it didn't make me feel better. It didn't take away the hurt. Jenny came into the room then, standing in the doorway watching us. She knew what had happened, knew how much it had hurt all of us, but she didn't know how to fix it either. The girls stood there for a few more minutes, their shoulders slumped, their faces a mix of shame and sadness. But it wasn't their words that changed everything. It was the moment I realized they had finally understood what it meant to lose someone, not just me, but the idea of family itself. And I realized, for the first time, that they weren't the only ones who needed to figure things out. I did too. Maybe there was still a way back, but it would take more than just words. It would take time, trust, and something we had all lost along the way: effort. "I don't know where we go from here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I need you to show me that you care, not just say it." Grace nodded, her face still pale, but there was a tiny bit of hope in her eyes. "We will," she said, her voice small but strong. And in that moment, I realized something important. It wasn't just about them understanding how much their words had hurt me. It was about me understanding how far I had let this silence go. Maybe we could still fix this, but it would take all of us working together. And for the first time in days, I felt like there might be hope. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed next to Jenny, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the girls and their apologies. Were they really sorry? Or were they just tired of the cold silence in our house? I remembered the look in Grace's eyes when she said, "We will." There was something there, something real. Maybe they really did understand what they had done. The next morning was Sunday. Usually, I made pancakes on Sundays. It was our thing, me flipping pancakes while the girls set the table and Jenny made coffee. But for the past few weeks, there had been no pancakes. No family breakfasts at all. I got up early, before anyone else. The house was quiet, the kitchen dark. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the light switch, wondering what to do. Then I made a decision to be. By the time the girls stumbled downstairs, rubbing sleep from their eyes, I had a stack of pancakes waiting. The kitchen smelled like butter and syrup. They stopped in the doorway, their eyes wide with surprise. "Sit down," I said, not looking at them. "They're getting cold." Slowly, carefully, like they were afraid I might change my mind, they sat at the table. I put a plate in front of each of them, 3 pancakes, just the way they liked. Nobody said anything as they started to eat. I could feel them watching me, waiting for me to say something, but I kept my back to them, washing the frying pan in the sink. "These are good," Lily said finally, her voice small. Thanks, Dad. The word dad hung in the air between us. It was the first time either of them had called me that since I heard them talking that day that I just nodded, still not turning around. I wasn't ready to forgive them completely. Not yet, but making pancakes was a start. Jenny came down a little later, her face lighting up when she saw us all in the kitchen together. She didn't say anything, but I could see the hope in her eyes. After breakfast, the girls went to their rooms, and Jenny and I were left alone in the kitchen. That was nice, she said, her voice careful, like she was afraid to say the wrong thing. That I shrugged. It's just pancakes. She smiled a little. You know it's more than that. And she was right. It was more than pancakes. It was a tiny step back toward being a family again. The next day was Monday, and I had to go back to work. When I got home, I was surprised to find Grace waiting for me at the door. Dad? She said as soon as I walked in. Can you help me with my math homework? I don't understand fractions. Before, I would have helped without thinking twice. But now I hesitated. Part of me was still angry, still hurt. But then I looked at her face. She was really trying. And I had told them I needed them to show me they cared, not just say it. Okay, I said finally. Let me change first. I spent an hour at the kitchen table with Grace, explaining fractions and helping her with her homework. Felt good, normal, like maybe we could get back to the way things were. That night at dinner, Lily asked me about my day at work. It was something small, but it meant a lot. She was trying too. Days passed, and slowly, things started to get better. The girls made more efforts, small things like asking for help with homework, telling me about their days, even just saying good morning. When they came down for breakfast, I started doing more for them too. Not everything, not all at once, but I made their lunches again. I reminded them to brush their teeth. I fixed Grace's bike when the chain came off. But there was still something hanging between us, something unspoken. We were being careful with each other, tiptoeing around the real issue. Nobody wanted to bring up what had happened, why they had said those words in the first place. It was Lily who finally broke the silence. We were sitting in the living room one evening, about a week after our talk. Jenny was working late, and Grace was at a friend's house, so it was just me and Lily. Dad? She said suddenly, looking up from her book. Can I ask you something? I muted the TV, turning to look at her. Sure. She took a deep breath, like she was gathering her courage. Are you still mad at us? I thought about it for a moment. Was I still mad? Yes, a little. The hurt was still there, a dull ache in my chest when I remembered their words. But the anger had faded. I'm not mad, I said finally, but I'm still hurt. Lily nodded, her eyes on her hands. I know, and I'm really sorry. We both are. I know you are, I said. Then I asked the question that had been bothering me for weeks. Why did you say it, Lily? Why did you tell Grace I wasn't your real father? Lily's face went red, and she wouldn't look at me. For a minute, I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then, in a voice so quiet I had to lean forward to hear her, she said, We found some pictures. My stomach dropped. Pictures. She nodded. In Mom's old box in the attic. There was a man with her and us when we were babies. Mom wrote on the back that it was our dad. Our real dad. So that was it. I knew about those pictures. Jenny had been married before, to a man named Robert. He had left when the girls were very young. Lily had been 3, Grace just a baby. They had no memories of him. As far as they knew, I was the only father they had ever had. Jenny and I had decided years ago that we would tell them about Robert when they were older. But I guess they had found out on their own. And that made you think I wasn't your real dad? I asked. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. We were confused. We didn't understand why Mom never told us. And then we got angry and we said those things, but we didn't mean them, Dad. I promise we didn't. I sighed, rubbing my hand over my face. You should have asked us about it, Lily, instead of talking behind our backs. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry. I moved to sit next to her on the couch, putting my arm around her shoulders. She leaned into me, and I could feel her trembling. "Look," I said, "the man in those pictures? His name was Robert. He was your biological father, but he left when you were very little. You and Grace don't even remember him. Why did he leave?" Lily asked, her voice small. I sighed. This was a conversation we should have had years ago. I don't know all the details. You'll have to ask your mom about that. But what I do know is that he chose to leave, and I chose to stay. I chose to be your father. Lily was quiet for a long time, thinking about this. Then she looked up at me, her eyes wet with tears. "I'm glad you stayed, Dad." Something tight in my chest loosened at her words. "Me too, kiddo. Me too." When Jenny got home that night, I told her about my conversation with Lily. She was upset at first. She had been keeping those pictures hidden for years, afraid of how the girls would react if they found out about Robert. "We should have told them years ago," I said. "They had a right to know." Jenny sighed, running her hand through her hair. "I know. I didn't want them to think they weren't wanted. Robert didn't want to be a father. He made that very clear. But you did. You chose them, Tom. And they need to understand that." The next day, we sat down with both girls and told them everything. How Jenny had been married to Robert, how he had left when they were tiny, how I had met Jenny a year later and fallen in love with not just her, but with her 2 little girls as well. "I chose to be your father," I told them, my voice shaking a little. "And every day since then, I've kept choosing it. That's what being a real father is. It's not about blood. It's about being there, every day, no matter what." The girls listened quietly, their faces serious. When we were done, Grace asked, Does Robert ever want to see us?" Jenny and I looked at each other. This was the hard part. "No, sweetie," Jenny said gently. "He moved away a long time ago. We don't even know where he is now." Grace's face fell, and my heart ached for her. It had to be hard, hearing that your biological father didn't care enough to stay in touch. "But that's okay," I said quickly, "because you have me, and I'm not going anywhere." Later that night, after the girls had gone to bed, Jenny and I sat on the couch, talking quietly. "Do you think they understand now?" she asked. I thought about it. "I think so, but it's going to take time. We've all been hurt in this, and healing doesn't happen overnight." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You're a good father, Tom. Better than Robert ever was or could be." I didn't answer right away. The past few weeks had been hard, harder than anything we'd ever gone through as a family. But maybe we needed this. Maybe we needed to break apart a little so we could come back together stronger. "I just want them to be happy," I said finally, "and to know that I love them. Not because I have to, but because I want to." The next few weeks weren't easy. There were still moments of awkwardness, times when the memory of what had happened would come back and make us all uncomfortable. But slowly, day by day, we started to heal. The girls made more of an effort to include me in their lives. They told me about school, about their friends, about the books they were reading. They asked for my help with homework, with fixing things, with making decisions. And I made more of an effort to be the father they needed. I didn't just go back to doing everything I used to do. That wasn't healthy for any of us. But I made sure they knew I was there for them, that I cared, that I loved them. One Saturday, about a month after our big talk, I was in the garage, fixing our old lawnmower, when Lily came in. "Dad?" she said, hovering in the doorway. "Can I show you something?" I wiped my hands on a rag. "Sure. What is it?" She held out a piece of paper. It was a school assignment, an essay titled, "My Hero." "I have to read it in front of the class on Monday," she said, her voice nervous. "I wanted to know what you think." I took the paper, curious, and as I read, my heart swelled. The essay was about me, about how I had taken on the job of being a father to 2 little girls who weren't mine by blood, about how I had taught Lily to ride a bike, how I had stayed up all night when she had the flu, how I had cheered the loudest at her school play even though she only had 2 lines. "You're my real dad," she had written. "Not because you have to be, but because you choose to be. And that makes you my hero." By the time I finished reading, there were tears in my eyes. I looked up at Lily, who was watching me anxiously. "Is it okay?" she asked. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, then pulled her into a hug. She hugged me back, her arms tight around my neck. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. "I love you too," I said, my voice rough with emotion. So much. That night, I thought about how close we had come to losing each other, how a few words, spoken in anger and confusion, had nearly torn our family apart. But we had found our way back. Not to exactly the same place we had been before. I don't think we could ever go back to that. But to a new place, maybe a better one, where we understood each other more. Being a father isn't always easy. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes your kids make mistakes too. But that's part of being a family, messing up, saying sorry, and choosing to love each other anyway. The next Sunday, I got up early again and made pancakes. But this time, when the girls came down, still sleepy and rumpled, they didn't look surprised. They just smiled and sat at the table, and Lily got out the plates while Grace poured the orange juice. Jenny came in a few minutes later, her eyes warm as she watched us moving around the kitchen together, falling back into our old routine as if it had never been broken. And as I stood there, flipping pancakes and listening to my family talk and laugh, I knew that we were going to be okay. We had been broken, but we had put ourselves back together. And maybe, just maybe, we were stronger for it, because that's what real families do. They hurt each other sometimes, they make mistakes, they say things they don't mean. But in the end, they choose to stay. They choose to love. They choose each other every single day. And that's what makes